1 o'clock mark here, so out of respect for everyone's time, we're going to go ahead and get started here. So good afternoon, welcome. Thank you for taking time out to be with us today. This is part 2 of our 4-part series, Actionable Insights for Your Business in Response to COVID-19. Workplace has changed, and our leadership team here at Alliance has decided to share some actionable insights for everyone to consider as we navigate through these recent changes to the business and frankly our lives. And currently we're all uncovering new pain points that these changes have exposed and other ones that have been kind of amplified that we're always a little more tolerant. But these days they're getting louder and louder. So in this series, you're going to hear from multiple leaders across all 3 of the Alliance corporate companies: Alliance Advisors, Alliance Technologies, and Alliance Systems. During these 30-minute sessions, we'll be covering different areas of the business and learn as some of the leadership here at Alliance shares some of these critical insights. One important note to mention: throughout this presentation, questions will inevitably come up, and we're excited to take a look at those and address those. You can chat those directly to me out of privacy, or you can chat them to the group, and I'll continue to collect those and monitor those until the end when we have a Q&A session to hopefully discuss the questions that come through. So let's meet the MC. I am Blake Cundiff. I'm the Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Alliance Corporate. I have 15 years of experience as a consultant, strategist, and a sales and marketing executive across multiple service industries. I sit on the board of directors of a local nonprofit that helps families out that are currently dealing with cancer treatments and create memories for them. In addition, I'm on a top 3 fundraising team and a speaker for the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network. So as my role relates to Alliance, I'm really just a facilitator. Alliance Corporate, being made up of 3 different companies, we solve a wide range of projects that span across the entire organizational chart and every aspect of everyday business operations. So with each potential client and even discussions with our current clients, it's really my job just to listen and understand and empathize with where the pain points are in the business, and then just facilitate a conversation with the right member of our talented team to try to help take next steps to help solve problems for our customers. But, enough about me. Let's meet the presenter. Let's flip over to Kirk Ross here. Kirk is the Senior Director of Staffing Solutions for Alliance Advisors. He has 20+ years of experience in delivering, leading, and developing talent acquisition functions for medium and large organizations. His background is extensive, and his experience in not only identifying and attracting top talent, but also developing proactive recruiting strategies that attract the long-term talent needs that drive operational and financial success of companies. Kirk's going to share with us how to remain attentive and proactive in identifying and bringing the right talent for your organization during this COVID-19 pandemic. Without further ado, take it away, Kirk.
All right, thanks, Blake. And good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us today. My intent is to provide you some practical guidance and insight on your approach with your employee base today, along with ideas on opportunities you should consider and take into account to ensure that you have not only the talent your organization needs now during this critical time, but also into the future. My hope is that you'll be able to take away some to-dos or even find some ahas or new ideas that you can leverage with your organization today. So what are we going to talk about? I'll be discussing really 4 key items during the webinar, and then we do a little bit of wrap up at the end, as well as a little bit of question and answer, as Blake mentioned. So where are we going to start? So first, we're going to talk a little bit about what you can be doing now. And really, I should have put in here what you should be doing now with your employee base. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about understanding your staff, your needs, not only now, but also into the future. This is also a great time to look at your processes and systems. And because of obviously the virus and the crisis that we're under right now, looking at ways to simplify as well as digitize and automate in certain situations those processes because of just the limited social interaction, face-to-face type of meetings. So looking at those right now, because it's an expectation of new employees and candidates into the future. The final piece, and this is something that a lot of companies forget about, is that a lot of organizations are in a situation where they're either in a holding pattern with their hiring or doing limited hiring, and some companies are doing a lot of hiring. My recommendation right now is you need to stay connected with that candidate base, staying visible and relevant. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. Then we'll wrap things up with some final thoughts, then turn it back over to Blake to talk a little bit about what next week's going to look like. And then, as Blake mentioned, we'll go into some question and answers after that point. So what can you be doing now? Let's start with the basics first on what you can be doing. And again, it really what you should be doing. I'm trying to be a little nice in my tone, but it's really something you should be doing at this point in time. I hope you've already undertaken many of these or almost all of them, but just as a reminder, I just wanted to bring these up for everybody. Now more than ever, you and your leadership team need to stay close to your employee base, checking in frequently, weekly, daily calls, phone or video calls, personal outreach. Obviously, everyone has had a huge change, not only in their professional lives, but specifically in their personal lives. People going from working in offices, working in teams, to working in remote situations that bring about loneliness as a basic emotion, but also just detachment or just sometimes a little bit just not feeling as part of the team or part of the organization because of being in a remote and working from home. So taking that time for that personal outreach. The next piece here is over-communicate. You can't communicate enough with your staff and your employees right now. Again, those personal outreach, the org updates, those types of things, keeping them connected. And a lot of times people forget a little bit about, this is also a time to get very personal, not personal in an appropriate way, but really staying connected, having fun with your employees, Zoom meetings, contests. I've heard certain things about, hey, let's have a dance contest, put a video up and see who's the best. I mean, just simple things like that, just to kind of provide a little relief, a little levity, and a little break in the anxiety that everyone's feeling right now. The last piece is you got to be flexible right now. Things are changing on a moment-to-moment basis. Hopefully, many of you have a plan related to how you're going to be working with your staff and your employee base. And you really got to be flexible with that. Changes are happening every day. The guidance, this perspective on the virus and what it's the impact and just the time frame that we're under, but hopefully before things return to a normal or a new normal. So you have to be flexible with just those daily changes, what happened, as well as with your staff and what's going on with them. Secondly, hopefully now more than ever, you're partnering very closely with your HR professional if you have one on staff, as well as your legal counsel. They will provide you huge insight into just dealing with and navigating the very complex regulations, the changes, the laws, and just the policies and procedures that you have within your organization and that you need to take a look at. So definitely take advantage of leveraging those resources even more. If you don't have an HR professional or if you don't have an attorney that has a specialization in employment law, then you might want to look at and consider a fractional HR consultant or contract situation that can provide you that insight. If you don't know where to start with that, that is something that we have within our network, and we're happy to make the appropriate introductions to get you those resources that you need. I mentioned the COVID plan or a plan for your people, but this is something that is very, very important. Hopefully many of you have some kind of structure around this, or if you don't, you're well on your way. But if you don't, please get on this ASAP. It really is important. I'm going to talk really about 4 key areas that you want to have in your plan at minimum. There could be additional pieces that you want to include, but I'm just going to focus from a time standpoint on the 4 areas that you need to look at. First one that you want to talk about is, what are your plans to ensure safety of your employee base? What are you going to do from a facility cleanliness or decontamination? Heaven forbid any of your staff or any of you contract the virus or suffering from any of the symptoms in any way. But if for whatever reason something happens, or just keeping your facility clean in general and decontaminated, that's one of the key pieces you need to have a part of it. Do you have the right personal protective equipment for your employees? What are you going to do to acquire those resources? Those are things to think about. Looking at just the policy around sick leave, your sick policy. If someone does get sick, many times people do come to work when they're sick, when they shouldn't, and now more than ever they shouldn't. So how are you going to ensure that people are going to stay home, get the treatment that they need, But then on the flip side of that, when your staff does improve and they get healthy, how are you going to ensure that they truly are healthy before you can bring them back to work? And probably look at a procedure specifically for that. The next piece of the plan to think about is security. Now, security is not physical security, software security, or anything like that, but the security of your staff financially, with policies, procedures, and insurance coverage, those types of things. So looking at what are your financial plans over the next 3 to 6 months, and how does that affect your employee base? Looking at your healthcare coverages, looking at opportunities for the payroll protection program, taking advantage of getting that assistance as well. Looking at your vacation and sick leave policy, I mentioned that a second ago. With the severity of the virus, there could be a very long period of time that someone could be out. So you might want to look at changing that policy in the short term to allow for maybe a little bit more pay. I know that's a little tight to do that, possibly, but it's something that you might want to consider in the long run. And in a drastic situation, if you're looking at where you're going to have to downsize from a temporary basis with furloughs or straight out layoffs, you want to look at what that process looks like and what type of assistance you might be able to provide your employees that you might be laying off in the short run, and just consider what are your different options there, because legally, regulations and the like, your HR professionals and your attorneys should provide you a lot of guidance on that. Hopefully you don't have to go that route, but if you do, you want to consider what that plan would look like. The next piece of the plan to have on your radar screen is enablement. How are you going to enable your staff? What types of coverage options are you looking at if absenteeism increases? If you have layoffs, how are you going to cover those critical aspects of your business to ensure that your organization will continue forward into the future? So making sure that what are your plans from a staff standpoint there? What types of policy changes do you need to make? Obviously, if people are working remote, that may bring up some different policy changes around productivity, expectations, and the like. And in the short run, you have to develop something pretty quickly to look at that. Speaking of working remote, what does your technical infrastructure look like? Hopefully, everyone's got this in place. We've been under this for a little while, but continue to look at that and make sure that your folks have the technology to keep them enabled, keeping them productive in this remote setting that we're under today. One thing that sometimes companies forget about, and this is around your manager's capability of managing a remote staff. A lot of times they may never been required to do that and never had the opportunity to do it. So it's something to think about to make sure that they're comfortable, have the resources that they need, as well as some guidance, coaching, and some mentoring, and maybe just some basic training to assist with those skills. The last piece is what types of additional resources are you possibly going to need, and what's your plan to get them? Are you going to need temporary staff? Are you going to need to hire additional people? Or basic things like cleaning supplies, I mentioned that earlier, as well as personal protective equipment. Getting those and having a plan to get those is very difficult. We all know the joke that you're hearing, not joke, but there's the situation around toilet paper. Other cleaning supplies are very difficult to find, even just going to a Target or a Walmart to find those things, but you want to make sure you have an avenue to get those. I mentioned this before with the PPP program, but also take advantage of any type of relief being offered today, whether it's through the Small Business Administration or the CARES Act. My colleague last week, Kirk, did a great job of providing some insight and some different options, and he reinforced this as well. Take advantage of that opportunity if you need it, and it's something that's great security for your employees going forward. I want to remind everybody that your approach today, your leadership, your communication, the empathy that you show, the connectivity, resilience, there's so many different pieces of your leadership competencies that you're showing, but they do and will have lasting effects on your workforce. It reinforces their ability to stay employed, viable options from a financial standpoint, but it also impacts the ability to retain that staff and attract new staff into the future. So please, 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 focus very much on what you're doing on a day-to-day basis and how you're leading your teams. Next component I wanted to talk about is understanding your staff. You're pivoting now in your business in ways that you probably even ever thought would be possible or needed to be done. And understanding your staff, their capabilities, and potential needs are critically important so that you're able to pivot your staff and your organization to stay up with the changes and challenges that you're facing. What am I talking about? Workforce planning is the term. that is most commonly talked about when you're talking about your staff and their capabilities. And essentially what you're doing is you're understanding your current talent, what potential needs there are, whether it's developmental needs or requiring new staff, and what your plans to address them. Some of you may be thinking, geez, Kirk, this is something that could be a long-term process, can take a couple of weeks to get done. It really doesn't have to be that overly complicated or long and drawn out. It could be simply just gathering your leaders together for an hour, maybe two at the most, and talking about just what our staff looks like and what are our needs. The big piece that I wanted to remind everybody of, when you're going through this process, it's critical to understand different aspects. First and foremost, do you really have your needs covered now? Do you have those critical aspects of your organization and the products and services you provide to your customers covered? And what does that need to look like? And what do you need to do to adjust appropriately? The next piece, I kind of alluded to that, is do you have your talent in the right places? Are they focused on the most critical aspects? Are they doing the things to really help sustain and keep your business healthy at this critical time? And what should you be doing to maybe possibly adjust or pivot some of those resources to those critical areas? What types of plans for coverage do you need to take into account? How are you going to cover things if absenteeism, if you have layoffs, furloughs, those types of things, again, to sustain your business when you may have a reduced staff? So what are those plans? If you have staff in place, but you need to develop them, or if you need to bring on additional staff, what's the plan? How are you going to do that? What types of employees are you going to bring on? Are you going to bring on temporaries? Are you going to bring on contractors? Or are you going to bring on full-time staff? You need to think about that and understand what are those different options that you have available to you. And then the other piece is, what are the upcoming needs? Hopefully over the next few months, the crisis subsides, things ease, and we get back to somewhat of a norm or a new normal. But if you have upcoming needs, you need to understand those. There's a lot of people in the market today, and this is really an opportunity for each of you to look at, are there opportunity hires that you want to make that can help build your business, grow your business, possibly now and into the future? Because just a few months ago, in the role that I had been in previous to joining Alliance, it was very difficult to find talent. The unemployment rate was at a significant historical low. But now we kind of unfortunately have an opportunity to look for talent and identify and bring those in because of just the talent that's available due to the economic situation. Doing this now not only ensures that you are prepared with your current staff, but it also reinforces you ensuring them of their continued employment, growing and resulting in their continued increased commitment and loyalty to your organization. If this is a process that you haven't done before or need some guidance, let us know. Again, we can connect with you with the right resources through our network or provide that assistance directly to you. As I mentioned before in the agenda, this is also a time that, lack of better phrasing, presents and demands your HR professionals and you as an organization to look at your talent-related processes and systems and improve and digitize them. The talent processes I'm talking about are simply around your recruiting, your onboarding, your orientation, and your development processes. And what should you be considering to do there? Obviously, where you can, optimize, simplify those processes. Many of us have had processes that have been in place for a very long time. And again, because of the crisis and because of what's going on, you're going to have to adjust those. You're going to have to look at opportunities to digitize, moving face-to-face meetings and interviews to Zoom meetings, to Skype, whatever is that mechanism for you from an organizational standpoint. Looking at those documents and forms that you've used for probably many years, possibly, and flipping those to electronic documents, leveraging an Adobe type of tool set or another document management system that can push those documents out to individuals and leverage electronic signatures instead of ink signatures. But also you want to look at automating some of your components around onboarding. Looking at, you may have done some certain things from a document or from a process standpoint that was more face-to-face, but you need to look at how do we automate possibly some of this onboarding process. And it doesn't have to be going out and buying a new system or a new piece of software, especially now because probably you're not wanting to really put out a lot of money for improving or doing some systems work, but it could just be as simple as just putting the documents in electronic format and having someone send them out in a little bit more electronic manner, just because people are very leery about those face-to-face meetings or group settings. A reminder here, don't forget to train your managers on this. A lot of managers are used to face-to-face interviews. They may be uncomfortable with Zoom interviews and those types of things. Don't forget to provide them that insight and training. And again, if you're needing assistance or guidance here, let us know. My background and my experience in our organization, we do a lot of this type of work, helping people with this type of simplification of what they're doing. So let us know. We can introduce you to the right resources and get you the assistance that you need. The last piece that I wanted to touch upon is, and I alluded to it earlier, is that there's a lot of talent in the market today. And hopefully all of your organizations, you're in a holding pattern from a hiring standpoint, or potentially hiring. And again, hopefully not in a situation where you have to have layoffs. But one of the things that many companies forget or toss aside at times of crisis like this, or just economic or just business related, is they kind of shut off or stop their providing that visibility and relevancy of their organization to that target candidate base or potential employee base for their organization. And right now, more than ever, I think it's important to leverage some low-cost opportunities and activities to really continue to keep yourself in front of those target client candidates, as well as ensuring them that your organization is viable, it's healthy, this is what we're doing. And also in the situation, if you're hiring, letting people know. I mean, there's a lot of assumption out there, and I've talked to many people that are thinking that, geez, no one's hiring right now. And I'm telling them, no, there's a lot of opportunities. You just have to, keep your eyes open and look for them, as opposed to just assuming that they're not there. So some of these low-cost activities, leveraging your website, different social media outlets, the LinkedIns, the Facebooks, the Indeeds, Glassdoor, those types of opportunities. If there's blogs that your company provides or participates in, those professional organizations, continuing to stay connected with them through their industry newsletters and or just their websites as well. Some of the things you want to talk about and consider in your discussion, or just the content that you're pushing out there, is talk about your company's success, how things are going, what you're doing to provide for your customers, but more importantly, what you're doing to provide for your employee base. That's a huge differentiator right now, and it really shows what you're doing as an organization to support your employees. And that's what prospective employees love to hear and want to hear. And that's a huge differentiator for you as an organization. So definitely take advantage of that. The next piece you want to think about is continuing, and it alludes to this, but it's that direct outreach to possible candidates and bringing candidates in from a pipelining standpoint. Now, I'm not saying physically bringing them into your organization for meetings or anything like that, but putting them on a pipeline, letting them know that, say, hey, we normally have a lot of opportunities, we've slowed, but we do see that you as a viable potential candidate or potential employee of our organization, and having those people at the ready is huge to close the gap from when you have the need to when that person and that resource is within your organization. So continue to do those types of things. Don't forget about that, because again, a lot of companies have shutting down, and very large companies are shutting down their hiring. And this positions, organizations that are hiring or have the potential to hire, to really leverage that candidate base that's just not seeing those opportunities at the volume that we were seeing just a few months ago. The last piece, and again, it's connected to the pipelining and outreach, but networking. I'm subscribing to and I'm recommending that networking with your customers, your vendors, and your competitors. Those individual or groups may be in situations where they're laying off, having furloughs, or they're struggling with just maintaining their employee base. There might be opportunities where individuals within those three groups who might be laid off or just employees are looking at, you might be able to look at those people to bring them onto your organization and with limited training because of their experience. So to wrap things up, these are unprecedented times. Now more than ever, you as leaders need to stay close and supportive of your organization, but also what you're dealing with and the challenges are unprecedented. So staying close to your employees, staying involved are really critical. again, to your ability to retain that talent and keep your people safe. Stay closely engaged with your HR professionals, your attorneys, and your legal counsel, but also just with your employees in general. Stay flexible and with your workforce and your policies and procedures right now. Well, I hope this has been helpful, this discussion, and that you found some opportunities to put into play or some opportunities to think about to work with your employees and possibly in a different way. If you have questions or need additional assistance or guidance, or again, introductions to some professionals in our network, we're here to help. Again, thank you for your time and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Kirk. That was great insight, and I appreciate you being able to share all that experience that you had from your past and how it applies to what people can be doing currently with all the recent changes here. So real quickly, before we jump into Q&A, I want to take a look ahead to next week. Next week is part 3 of this 4-part series here, Leveraging Agile Process and Remote Work to Thrive During a Pandemic. Caesar Keller is our Chief Experience Officer and Senior Partner over at Alliance Systems. So we're inviting you to take a journey with Caesar as he shares his experience with building great culture and process within software development agile teams. While some companies may just now be learning to set up a productive remote work performance, Caesar's been creating this culture and managing teams across different continents with innovative communication platforms and tools for the last decade. Find out how the best teams can collaborate and perform without missing a beat if they have the right leadership and trust in place. Really excited for you and looking forward to that. If you've registered for any of the webinars, you've registered for the whole series. And we invite you to bring your coworkers and anyone else that would want to attend that. So I have aggregated a few questions that popped up throughout the presentation, Kirk, if you're available here for an extra couple minutes.
Yep, certainly.
I'd love to bounce some of these off of you. Question, this is a good one here. We are actually very busy and needing to hire more folks, but concerned that once the crisis eases, the level of staff needs will need to decrease. So essentially hiring for a need now that may not be there after this all subsides. So what options would someone like that want to consider?
There's a lot of different options you can consider. The first one I would think about is partnering with a staffing or a temporary agency and working with them on those needs immediately, and working specifically and discussing with them about the right to hire opportunity. If the growth in your staff or the demand for your staff increases and remains after the crisis, then you have that option to bring on some individuals and in a short-term basis. And then if you do have the need or don't have the need when things do subside, you can release those individuals as temporary employees or bring them on as full-time hires for the future. So definitely consider that as when you're talking to those staffing partners.
Very good. On the flip side of that exact same coin, we have a question that this person is at the point where they're evaluating furlough versus layoff for a few of their employees. So as the other side of that unfortunate coin, what should someone like that consider?
I think in that situation, it's similar to what you're talking about from a standpoint of bringing on staff. What is the time frame do you think that the staff, that you won't need your staff? So considering the furlough option at that point, because that's more of a temporary, just lapse in work for a period of time for your staff. So thinking about what is the long term and doing some planning and some projecting out what that might look like. In the situation where you do need to remove the staff permanently or feel that, because of the changes that your organization is going to be reduced in just the business opportunity, then layoffs are probably more of the option to consider at this point in time. Either way, you can bring the staff back. It doesn't mean you can't. Furlough just provides it a little bit more easily versus the actual termination through a layoff. But work with your employee, with your HR professional and or your legal counsel to navigate that process, because from a legal standpoint, a regulatory standpoint, it's complex and can impact your organization in other ways other than just removing those individuals in a temporary or permanent basis.
Great answers, Kirk. Thanks again. I think we are running right up to our time limit. So out of the respect for everyone on the call's time, going to go ahead and bring it home here. I believe the next slide here is going to have Kirk's contact information. Do not be shy about checking out the website or the LinkedIn page. That's Kirk's direct contact info. If you have further questions, concerns, feedback, anything in that nature, he is happy to answer those. There will be a recording of this shared at a later date along with the speaker notes and the slides here. So that'll include the question and answer results. So thanks again, Kirk, for your expertise. And thank you all for attending this with us, your time, and all the best to you, your families, your organization during these unprecedented times. And we look forward to speaking with you next week for part 3 of this 4-part series. Have an outstanding rest of your week and weekend. Thanks, Kirk.
Thank you.